A cold January day of 2005, I took one of my most important drive of my life. I was on this road in upstate New York trying to find this old factory. And the day before, I received a flyer in the mail and said, fully equipped yogurt plant for sale. I throw it in the garbage can. And 20 minutes later, I picked it up and called the number. The plant was 85 years old and it was closing. So I decided to go see it. At this time, I wasn't sure where this road or my life is going. I owned a small cheese shop, but really hated business. But the hills and the roads and the smells is all familiar. I grew up in Turkey, in a similar environment, near the Kurdish mountains. My family made cheese and yogurt. I grew up listening shepherd stories. We didn't have much, but we had the moon and the stars, simple food, each other. Eventually, I came to America. I didn't even know New York had farms. I made it to upstate, and I never left. Now I'm lost. I passed the road sign, said, dead end. And then soon after, there it was, the factory. The smell hit me first. It was like a milk container left out in the sun. The walls were so thick. Paints were peeling. There were cracks everywhere. The factory was so old, the owners thought it was worthless. I thought they left a zero off. I couldn't believe the price. As I entered in, I stopped noticing things. All I could see were the people. There were 55 of them. It was quiet. Their only job was to break the plant apart and close it forever. I found a yogurt plant. It's for sale. It's not very expensive. I want to buy it. He says, wait. He says, tell me one more time. I keep telling him, it's a broken English, all that kind of stuff. Mario said, they said, the largest food company in the country, Kraft, is closing this factory. And they're getting out of the yogurt business. So I called him back in the same drive again. I said, no, Mario, there's something there. I really think that. He says, how much is it? $700,000. He says, you don't have the money. You have not paid me in the last 6 months. And there is no way you're getting that kind of money. Your cheese plant is worthless. You haven't made money yet. And that was my visit and leaving from the plant. There was no reason to think that this plant will worth anything or something can be done in this plant or anything like that. I had no plan or idea. It was just pure feeling. Walking in that place, I felt like there's something here. And later on, I read this line from Rumi. He said, when there is a ruin, there's a treasure. And treasure for me was the people. I think those people who were giving their best to it and the guy who showed me the factory made me convinced that even though this is the end, there's something amazing in here. If you see it, you should stay for it. And that's what I did. Heavenly bankers I've ever met in my life, and I have not met since. They were small bank, key banks, regional salespeople. And they said, if we get the SBA to tell us we guarantee the loan 50%, we think we can get the rest. You have to come up with 10% and we get the 40%, we can get this done. So why don't you write a business plan? This first business plan I've ever written in my life. And Pat got it. I know they won't ask me to speak to them next year, so. But seriously, the business education you've gotten here is the best in the world. You should be as proud of that fact as your families and your friends are proud right now. As I wondered what to say here today, I turn to people I always turn to for wisdom and advice. I asked some of the men and women who work with me at the plant at Chobani.
At the true joy, true power of business comes when you see that it has a direct impact on people's life. 1,000 years. I feel like I traveled 1,000 years. If you look at my early days, I'm in a tribe where tradition has not changed for hundreds of years. Now it's changed. Shepherds have cell phones. But back then when I left, it was the same way they made the butter. It was the same way they did the weddings. It was the same way they grieved. It was the same way they interacted socially with each other. It had not changed so dramatically. The only time that they would go see somewhere outside of the town when they get sick, or they went to military service. But outside of that, it was the same thing. So for me, it's been an amazing journey. And I had to, adjust as I went through. But I can tell you what makes joy in business. If you're a founder, and if you are the beginning, starting person in the journey, I can tell you that you could have an enormous amount of experiences through this. And for me, it is tremendous. I'm a kid from the shepherds. And as it gets successful and bigger, it becomes extremely powerful. And this, I had no idea about this until I started. Now, what I can tell you on that one is if you want to make business joyful, but also very successful, it has to be embedded very, very early on, at day one. And it truly needs to be embedded early on. And then becomes magical. Like you just don't know how things comes into life. You just don't know how you find solutions. People will give you credits. 99% of it is not you. It's the environment that you created or you've been part of to be created. That inputs come from left and right. Ideas come from left and right. People become heroes. People become solution makers. And it becomes this magical environment. And I always said, it's an elevated environment. So how do you make an elevated environment? Yeah, money is good. And you can do a lot of things with it. And people get excited about it. The people I hired that they let go in the factory, in that old factory, old company, they just fired them, left them behind, and just left. This is another topic that you could talk about for hours. Those same companies are going to be millionaires. Maybe lawyers said I shouldn't be saying this. But the factory workers, right? But I couldn't motivate them if I told them, you work with me, I'm going to make you a millionaire. Maybe, but not that great. But if you create an environment and say, these people left you, and these people left us, these people left this factory, children, this community, these farmers. And I've seen this happen where I come from. This is a responsibility of business. It's happening everywhere. And there is an answer to this. We can go out and scream and protest and all that kind of stuff. Or, even though we don't have money, even though we don't have experience, even though we don't have network, even though we don't have that kind of capability, but we can put ourselves together in this tiny little town, in this very old factory. And we could dream that this factory can become one of the biggest factories in this country in the next 5 years. And we could dream that we could be a #1 brand in this country, and we can kick those people's ass and we close this factory. And we can give the answer to them this way, is I found magic in purpose. And I found magic and an amazing harmonization of love and anger. In my opinion, the core reason of business exists is to provide good services to the consumers and shareholders, but at the same time, make the world and humanity a better place. The other part that we say is when you hire refugees, they're going to be the most loyal. They're going to work harder because they've gone through so much troubles. And they will provide and will bring more innovation, activity, and culture back, within your company. You will be better as a company. It's time to admit that the playbook that guided businesses and CEOs for the last 40 years is broken. In the movies, they have a name for people who take a different path to do things right. They call them anti-heroes. I think we need the same idea in business. We need anti-CEOs and we need anti-CEO playbook.
One of the solutions that you mentioned in your TED Talk recently was of CEO turning into an anti-CEO. That requires a lot of cultural change. I mean, is that at a practical level really possible in the current scenario we live in? Just the way society is set up, the way economic structures are set up.
You know, you do not exist as a business only to make profits for your shareholder. You have responsibilities in your community, you have responsibilities in your employers and their families, you have responsibility to grow the humanity and community. I don't see any other way of businesses and brands continue to exist with the motto of only I exist to make money.
Are you an anti-CEO?
I am a very anti-CEO, but that doesn't mean I'm an anti-business. I'm very anti-CEO of the way that the business is being done. Because if you prove that if the company is acting in the right way, doesn't mean you're not profitable. In many cases, you're more profitable. Doesn't mean that you're not innovative, you're more innovative.
How has that worked at Chobani?
That's why we grew so fast, right? We are in 10 years, we were a startup, 2007, in late 2007.
And you're a billion-dollar company now?
We are number one brand out there. The only reason we could do all these things is because everybody, as passionate as I am, coming to work every day, making a cup of yogurt that they're proud to make. But yet, with every cup that I'm making a difference in my community, I'm making a difference in my brothers and sisters' life, and I'm making a difference on humanity in the world. I'm glad Global Citizen created this business award, not because I'm getting it, but because business has a crucial role to play. Companies, as citizens, must take a side on climate change, on income inequality, on gun violence. Business must lead. And when it comes to the 25 million people who sleep tonight in muddy tents and refugee camps, the mandate for business is simple. Don't pity them, hire them. Let them live their lives again. Let them be part of community again, because a moment a refugee has a job, that is the moment they stop being a refugee. The truth is, what matters most in business or in life is the difference you make for the others. And in the end, the truest measure of the business is not return on investment, but return on kindness. So this award is a reminder that when we stand together and fight together, kindness and courage will triumph over poverty and hatred every time. I left when I was in university in Ankara, and I started publishing newspaper for my town. And the university, I was one of the first students that went to university in Ankara from our town. And I wanted to become the mayor of the town because that was the guy my father respected the most. So I said, I want to go to school to become that guy that my father respects the most. And there I got involved with human rights and all the other issues that Turkey was going through, and when it comes to Kurdish topic. And I got in trouble with the government. And because I was writing something and they didn't like it, between them taking me to the police stations and knowing what happened to my other friends who were activists, I was lucky to let go the next day, and then within a few days I was looking at a place to go. All my friends from the school were going to Europe, and I thought I would go to Europe. And a stranger person told me, don't go to Europe, go to America. And I didn't know much about America at the time, Kathy. I really didn't know much, other than some movies and buildings.
There's no family here.
No family.
You didn't speak English.
No. But I heard that guy, and he said, you should go to America because this is where you will feel free. This is where you can put your work, yourself into work. This is where you can avoid all the troubles that you had here. You won't be able to do that in Europe. So with his, advice and contacts, I went, and then they gave me visa, and I went to my hometown, and it took me 2 weeks to convince my mother to let me go, and I was here in October of 1994 with $3,000 in my pocket, with no language, nobody didn't know anyone here.
You started a small feta cheese business.
Yeah, so that was later on, and my father came one day visit, and he said, "Why don't you make cheese? They don't have good feta here." And I said to my father, I didn't come all the way from that mountain to here to make cheese. I should be doing something different. And he was right. And I started making cheese, and by the time I started making cheese, my mom and my dad, they both passed away, so they never saw it. And then when I was sitting in my office one day, this is 3 years after I started making cheese, I saw this ad. It said, "Fully equipped yogurt plant for sale." It's literally a junk mail came to my office, and I threw it away. I'm going through the junk mails once a week, and I went back to the mail. I picked it up, and I called the number. It happens to be a Kraft that's closing the factory, and they were selling it very cheap. It was about $700,000, and I went there. And I remember calling back to Mario. I said, "Mario, I just saw," Mario is my attorney there. He's an Italian guy. He's a nice guy. And he said, "Mario, I just saw a plant. It's so cheap. It's $700,000. Even one tank will worth that much. And I want to buy it." And Mario said, "Wait a minute. Kraft is getting out of yogurt business. They're closing the factory after 90 years. And you're buying it as is. You think you could do better than them? Like, this doesn't make any sense. If there was any value to it, they would never let it go." And plus, he said, they're selling as is. That means that they've done so much damage to the environment there. They're looking for a crazy Turk or idiot Turk to unload it to. So that's you. He's trying to protect me. And I said, next day, I said, "Yeah," I said, "You're right." And then next day, I would call him back. I said, "Mario, I just have this feeling in me that I should get this place. They don't have good yogurt here," and all that kind of stuff. He said, "Hamdi, even if you're right, you have no money. You have not paid me for the last 6 months." And he was right. I had no money to buy that $700,000
So
plant.
no plan, no money,
No money, nothing.
but a dream.
Yeah, it's actually like in this calling that I have this gut feeling that I could do something with this. There's this two banker from Key Bank in that area. They were active, and they found a way to get a financing for an SBA to loan guarantee, and they financed the boat. And I had this key for the plant on August 17, 2005. And the first thing I did is hire 4 factory workers with me. So that day we had our first board meeting among us. Yeah.
There you go. So look, you revolutionized what some people would argue was a pretty boring category. And, as you did that, you obviously had a different formulation and go-to-market strategy. What were some of the things that you think helped you to really revolutionize and then get into this very competitive space?
To be honest with you, I didn't think that I would make this much impact in the marketplace. All I was trying to do is to get the taste that I was used to, that I growing up at home, like the yogurt that my mother made. I didn't understand the concept that if you lived in New York, or if you had, if you make more money, you would get an access to a better yogurt. I just didn't understand that because, for tomato or yogurt or a loaf of bread or anything in that simplicity, it doesn't matter what your income is, doesn't matter where you live. You should be able to access to really that taste. So all I was trying to do is make the yogurt that my mother made and I loved and offer to the world. I truly believe every single person, one person, either voice or time or money or whatever that is, it adds up and it becomes something. And if it comes from the right direction, like direction that comes from here, it is so powerful that it can grow so fast that we can overcome all the problems. And I know it because I've done it. I've started with 5 people, And we elevated ourselves into this idea that we could create something else. In 5 years, we've done something that never been done before. Here more than, when I grew up in Turkey, of course. But for me, it means that, it's a life that you're enjoying. You're getting best out of yourself, your family, your friends, and obviously your community. I was in front of our Chobani cafe in Soho, and one lady who lives in the neighborhood came to me and said, you know what Chobani does to me? Chobani reminds me to be good to be myself. A cup of yogurt, might not change the world, but how you make it, it could. This how makes the huge difference. Because in that end of that cup of yogurt, when it goes to the shelf and you grab it, there's so many chains in back. What kind of ingredients you have? What kind of people are making this? What's their mindset? And when you make them, what's the environment in the factory? How do you treat your people? How do you treat your community? And every act on that journey makes a huge difference. Yogurt brings this freshness to the place. I always say my mother's yogurt was the best yogurt, but I'm gonna get close to it, second best. And I'm gonna make it for everyone. My mother is my inspiration. I've seen her giving. She, even today, I said, even if I give billions away, I could not get close to her giving a smile or a small gift. And shepherds, where I grew up with them, you visit them up in the mountains and you're a total stranger, and they'll give you a cup of yogurt. They don't have much, but they'll give you a cup of yogurt or a bread or even their coat, and to a stranger that they will never see again. And that's a giving without expecting anything in return. When you give somebody something that you don't expect anything in return, you call it, this is my shepherd's gift to you. First cup that I put it out there into the world, I pledged the 10% of profits to go to charities and do good in there. I believe, and I'm strongly believing this, is the business is the most powerful way to make a difference in the communities and societies. You cannot separate the power of food from life. Most of good memories that I can remember is around food. The table was the center of our life. I think what CIA does, and I've seen them looking at the food, and I've seen their connection to the chef, and then I see the chefs out there make sure that we all enjoy good food. We're in a healthy, well place. That they're bringing this joy back is the best thing. The next big step is how can we make this? We started in summer of 2005 with 5 people. When we worked almost 18 months in the kitchen, me and Mustafa and sometimes a few others, crafting this cup of yogurt. We try to do it as pure as possible. Because milk is a gift from nature, right? It comes to us as good as nature can give us. So we have to keep it, as a manufacturer, as a makers, we have to keep it integrity of the ingredients that comes from nature. Once we knew that we had it, the perfect cup of yogurt, then we had to find some fruits. So we asked for the fruit suppliers to bring us wholesome, real fruits. And some of them would say, well, nobody asked those things from us. So what do you mean? And if I'm gonna put peach into my bottom of my yogurt, it has to be peach. I mean, what is the other way? When it's authentic, when it's real, you don't have to say much about it. People will know. We really do believe there's a problem. These large corporations, where they have plants, they have people, they have resources, and simply refusing to make the perfect cup of yogurt. Everybody should be able to enjoy a real, good, simple yogurt. And that's what Chobani is.
Mustafa Abdel Karim is putting labels on yogurt containers. 3 years ago, he was running for his life. His village in Sudan was burning.
And they killed my father and 2 of my siblings.
He's one of 600 refugees working for Hamdi Ulukaya.
So my background is the reason that I knew about the refugees, and I knew how important it is to accepted with the new community. It's only possible if you get a job.
Ulukaya started Greek yogurt company Chobani in 2007. A year later, he began hiring refugees to work at his upstate New York plant. Why did you feel a connection to refugees? Because you didn't have that kind of story.
I left Turkey because I was Kurdish and I was very serious about Kurdish rights. A lot of Kurds in Turkey fled the country. The villages were bombed.
Persecution, oppression, fear. These are the common themes in the stories that many of his workers tell. But these refugees are the ones that hit the lottery. The UN resettles less than 1% of those seeking refuge. The odds are against the millions currently fleeing violence and death in the Middle East.
I couldn't believe it. I didn't know. I should have known. Even though I was hiring refugees here for 4 or 5 years, I didn't know how bad this is.
Ulukaya says the system for processing and resettling refugees is in dire need of change, and that undertaking will require corporate America to step up. You're asking the business leaders
I do.
to contribute.
Yeah.
Why should they?
Because we are effective.
The way that you said it suggests that government is not effective.
No. I mean, it's broken, right? It's broken. It's broken. UN is broken. Government is broken. This issue shouldn't have come to this point. It could have been stopped a long time ago.
Big names, from Google to Goldman Sachs, have already pledged support. The UN High Commissioner for Refugees has raised $17 million in donations. But Ulukaya says business leaders can do more than just write checks.
Let's face it, the way that we're dealing with the UN, with the refugee crisis today is the same way that we did in 1940s and 50s. Nothing has changed. Imagine the refugees has a cell phone, there's a Facebook, there's a group, and they're telling them which road to follow. So the way that they're dealing with this is different than the conditions are in the ground.
And while he's promised to eventually give away about half of his $1.4 billion fortune to support the cause, right now he's donated $2 million for immediate relief. He hopes it'll make it easier for people like Abdel Karim to start a new life.
Within this short time of working here, I was able to buy my own house, and I'm happy, and also helping my kids.
There's enough wealth, there's enough knowledge, there's enough mobility, there's enough technology, there's enough willingness, there's enough of everything. You just have to act faster. They got here legally. They've gone through a most dangerous journey. They lost their family members. They lost everything they have. And here they are. They're either going to be part of the society or they're going to lose it again. And the number one thing that you can do is provide them jobs. The minute they get a job, that's the minute they stop being a refugee. We need powerful people, not only relatives, but powerful people in our life to keep us right. Because in the end, those ideas are right. What Winnie said, it was 100% right. But when you are in the world of business, entrepreneurship, and social entrepreneurship, whenever it is, you get engaged with money. And then you get engaged with power, you get engaged with fame, you get engaged with a lot of stuff. And it's very easy to lose the side of it, and I have. Then you are in search of someone to come to tell you, okay, you gotta come to the right place.
One publication had a headline that said, American yogurt tycoon vows to choke U.S. with Muslims.
Yeah.
People targeted you.
Yeah. It was an emotional time. People, hate you for doing something right. I mean, what can you do about that? There's not much you can do. Of the business is not return on the investment, but return on kindness. So this award is a reminder that when we stand together and fight together, kindness and courage will triumph over poverty and hatred every time. Thank you so much. Thank you.